Hi, I'm Amazing, and I'm part of the podcast team for What Is Your Story? In this episode, we meet a cultural journalist and creative consultant who now leads the baton, a media agency rooted in culture. But long before all that, he was a restless teenager navigating life in a public secondary school, often in trouble, misunderstood, and a constant worry to his parents. What makes his story stand out isn't just where he is now, but how far he has come. If his story resonates with you, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a comment, share your thoughts, or even better, reach out if you have a story to share.
You are now listening to an episode of What Is Your Story by Noisy Podcast. Enjoy!
Oghenetegha here, style director, creative consultant, culture journalist, writer, editor. I lead a creative and media agency called The Baton. It's an arm of culture, right? It's something that we do to document every facet of culture as it interacts with faith and with creativity. Before I go all over that, let me just take you back to where you all started from. Growing up as a child, I'd love to read quite a lot because I saw my dad read. So I was given too much to reading, right? So I think books that my dad read when he was like in his late 30s or even 40s, I'd read that when I was like 18, when I was like 12, 11. Right, so I've always been a voracious reader, reading every single thing. Like, I mean everything I could lay my hands on. You know, there's this thing you do when you're in primary 6 or primary 5, depending on how it works nowadays. They ask you in your final year book, they ask you, what would you like to become? And I always remember that when I put that up, I put that I wanted to become a missionary, right? There's people who go out, like travel out of their country or state of residence to go preach the gospel, right? That was what I said. So, of course, I in my head, I was towing that path because I was a church boy, doing quizzes for like my church and all of that. So it felt like the right thing to say or be or do. And then secondary school came in. I mean, finding your way around. I was in secondary school at the time where Justin Bieber's Baby was popular. So that gives you context to how old or young I was, right? I was a fairly okay kid with regards to academics, right? Not bad, not good. Just somewhere in the middle. That's in secondary school, junior secondary school, right? But I think a lot of things changed in my senior secondary school. So I did SS1 in like a private school, right? A pretty private school where we're like 10 in a class or less than 12. But then for some reasons, finances weren't financing, if I could use that, right? And we had to switch. I think me first. My younger sister joined me later, but me first. So I had to move to a public secondary school, and then I had to start from SS1 again. And then that was such a mess for me, because I'm like here trying to navigate life. Like, what's this thing? How am I in less than 10 people in a class, and I'm coming to a school, I'm seeing like 200, like how am I supposed to survive? How am I supposed to cope? Like I remember the day I went for the entrance exam, and you were literally running to the exam hall because if you were there late, you were not going to write it. Like, so much apprehension. Like I didn't just understand why I had to be this way. I remember my dad saying, you have to run into that class now, else you will not write this. So much pressure, right? And got in there, wrote the entrance exams, results came out. I think I got 49 something. It wasn't up to 50, which was supposed to be the cutoff mark to gain admission. But I'm grateful that somebody took a chance and said, let's put him on probation. Right, so I was on probation, got in there 3 months in, was able to find my way. So I was put in the science department. So the science department had 4 classes, and obviously this was supposedly based off your academic abilities. But down the line, we knew that there were some people who were in A, so there's A, there's B, there's C, there's D. I was in D, so that gives you context, right? But we need some people when we A who know that these people were not smart, so they obviously paid money to get in there. But hey, it's a public secondary school. Our school fees was like 900, so obviously teachers were going to get money now, right? So we were in D. My dad wanted me in science because he wanted me to study architecture. My sister was doing mass comm. Alright, so it was like, he wants his only son to be in the science department, do all of that. And I hated technical drawing because I did not like the teacher, Mr. Yusuf. So technical drawing, like, how are you going to be an architect if you don't know or you don't like technical drawing? So I would skip classes, technical drawing. Like, I didn't want to be in that class. God, I just knew I wasn't doing this thing right. I didn't just feel right. And then SS1 came in. Then of course I started. Obviously, when you move to a new school, you want to interact with people, right? I started mixing up with certain people, and because it's such a big school, you are seeing, so like, you are 1 minute you're in the school like market trying to get something to eat. The next minute you're seeing like dust hovering somewhere. You know that somebody's fighting there. You are seeing chairs being raised, and then you are seeing teachers coming in to quell everything. That was like a regular thing. Or Fridays, you see that people from other schools are they're flying the fence, right? And you know that if you don't go home early, anything that you see is your cup of tea, right? That gives you context to the life that So it was such a different life. Like, I was like that Jabota guy coming to live in a school where it's like, you have to fight for your life if you want to survive, all right? Or where if you mess up, a teacher gets you, you're going to be in a mess. So that happened. I started mixing with people. Of course, people had different backgrounds. You had people who had done, like, you had this class, people who used to repeat, right? So they had repeated like a class before, and then you would have to interact with these certain people. I got introduced to video games, right? So that took a toll on me. I mean, I still love video games a lot. I like to play football a lot, in person, virtually, whatever. But that took, like, that opened a new dimension to me, because now I used to go home late, and every single time I was like, it actually was a period. There was literally a period in my life where there was no day I was not coming home past 6, 7. What was I doing? Playing video games after school, and sometimes skipping, because I know we used to have lessons for like 4 p.m. if I'm not mistaken, and I'll skip those to go and play a game. 25 naira, 20 naira. You play games till you play games like 4 hours. Sometimes you play game, you fight with somebody in the playground, like the game center. It was so bad that the game center guy knew us as customers, right? So we go there to play games. We're like, oh, don't worry, play. You come tomorrow and pay me. Like, you guys are my guys. So that's how we go there. Like, the ritual was coming. Fling your bag somewhere. Your bag is not your concern. Doesn't matter what's in your bag. Look for the nearest TV. Grab a pad. Grab a partner. And go there till your money finishes. And if your money finishes, look at someone that you know who can't play. Ask them, let's play. Loser pays. So loser pays. Whoever loses the game pays. You psych someone up like, I don't think this person. Or watch their game first. I think this person is whack. I can beat them. Then you pay loser pay. And sometimes you pay loser pay with somebody you don't have money. And then you are stuck. Because the person flogs you. Then you're like, I don't have money to pay for myself, I'm supposed to pay for this person. Whenever it was so bad that one time we had played games, we were not in debt, right? And the guy who was owning it was like, he was not having it. He was like, yo, you guys are owing me so much money. Give me your school bags. Go and look for money. And so we had to leave the game center. And I can remember that day, I walked up to someone like, good afternoon, sir. They were wearing my school uniform, obviously, still like a little kid. Like, good afternoon, sir. Like, sir, please, sir, I don't have transport money to go home. Please, sir, can you help me? Maybe give me like 200 or something. I had to go easy to pay. And then come back and hustle the one I used to go home. It was such a mess, right? But that was just, and so, and that kind of affected the dynamics growing up as a child, right? Because I was having fights with my parents almost every time I come back from school. It's always like, they didn't understand me. It's almost like I was wayward, I was recalcitrant. Like, it was almost like things weren't working. Like, I'll come back from school, they will flog, my mother will flog me, attempt to go and kneel down somewhere, and all of that. I remember being suspended from school. Oh, there's also the part where I had fondled with the idea of joining a cult just for the fun of it, right? Just so that when fights is happening, you just you know, be like, if you touch me, it's gonna go down now, right? It's really crazy because people were going to be injured, people were going to be maimed. Like, we had people who would fight, and because it's somewhere in the West, I'm trying to mention the state, right? So things actually could get diabolical too, right? People would fight. Like, we go to other schools and boys are fighting with like charms. It's not even play, like real. Like they have knives and everything. You stab them, really doesn't get to them. All of those things were real. We saw these things, so it wasn't hearsay. But I always think, by the mercies of God, no cult came for me, or I did not reach their cutoff mark or whatever. But of course, that didn't mean I didn't have like all that side, like skipping classes, doing all of that. And so it also affected dynamics with my parents. And then I remember we had a new principal who moved in, because they usually change principals like maybe 4 years. I don't know how it worked then. And we used to call this man Mayweather, obviously for the reasons of his boxing skills. I heard he used to box before he started education and whatnot. And what this guy would do is, if they catch you, because you have prefects, so prefects will go catch people, and for some weird reasons you were brought close to his office, or you were submitted to his office directly. Other teachers will use cane, right? Teachers always knew how to flog. Like we had this guy, man. You know, honestly, I'm not sure I want my children to go to public school, because I think like teachers, they are not even taught to have like a humane side, and it's actually wrong. Like, you had this guy called Spartacus. Why? He doesn't use one cane to flog. He uses like 2 on both hands. So we're actually naming people on the basis of their prowess of how wicked or how cruel they could be. And it didn't make any sense. That's not how you raise children. That's not how you... Well, I left secondary school when I was like, 16, 17. So imagine when I got in. And that's how you were raised. You saw people and you were afraid. You couldn't even communicate to them. Right? Except if you were like the big boys who you could not be messed with because you had like cult affiliations or whatnot. If not, you will see Shaggy, right? And so there's that. Back to Mayweather. Mayweather would first rip off your clothes. And I don't mean that figuratively, like literally. Tear your shirt. Tear your trouser, then box the hell out of you. And that's like people used to call him, if Mayweather catch you like this, go for bust your eye, and all of those things. I never thought a Mayweather occasion, I never thought I would be in the same ring with him. We had haircuts that were allowed in school for some weird reasons. I said, I want this haircut. And then I had the audacity to come with a haircut on their serving ground, where prefects usually do routine checks and whatnot. And they fished me out. You had the wrongest tie. Go and kneel down. So we'll just go randomly go and kneel down. They now put me near principal office. Then the principal comes out. Nobody told you what I did, Nobody informed him, Nobody. I just saw stars first. It's just rapid. It's just intense. Like, this man is boxing. He beat the hell out of me. Then he told them to take off my shirt, take off my trousers. I just had like my underwears, and they told me to go home. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how do you do that to people? Yes, somebody made a mistake. I did. But start the way to go about it. And I remember having to call my mom. I borrowed someone's phone, call my mom. I remember speaking to her. I remember how disappointed she felt. Although she was used to me disappointing her, right? So it didn't feel special. But this was just intense, knowing that she had to leave work, race down to her school to pick her son because he was suspended.
Are you enjoying the episode so far? If you love stories that make you feel at home, check out our anthology, A Man and a Woman and Other Stories. You can get a copy of this book through the link in our description box below or at Roving Heights Bookstore. Now let's get back to the episode.
That's the first. So first to do that, right? In the family. And then she came for me. Shout out to her, I love her. Came, took me home. Sewed a new uniform for me because obviously. Then I came back to school like maybe 3 or 4 days after, and I fell into trouble same day. I was foolish, man. And so she just like, it just calls 5 of us. Go to his office. You should kneel and lie down. They're just flogging us erratically. So to go home. Then my dad had to now come and plead for me. I'm just giving these instances to give you context of how secondary school was for me. It was like a 13, 14-year-old kid coming into a public school and not knowing how to navigate life. Meeting amazing people, of course, experiencing friendship, experiencing like a semblance of romance, but it wasn't it, man. I mean, what do you guys know in secondary school, right? But leaving that phase, right? But leaving that phase with something. Leaving that phase with a love for fashion. Because I just knew I loved to look good, right? I really didn't know that it was going to be anything or whatever. So you write WAEC or GC or NECO, whatever. But then I didn't get math. that time, sir. So I couldn't go into uni in the first year I left secondary school. So obviously there was pressure from my parents. My dad is like pretty, we didn't go to school that much. My children must do as much school as they can, right? And so I'm there at home, not doing anything, trying to navigate this life thing. And it's like, okay, maybe you can just find some way to work so that you don't waste your life. And so I started to work in a dry cleaning firm in a private university. I wanted to buy my first phone. Yeah, and then trying to just get a phone and really. So I started working, I started interacting, but after leaving secondary school, I knew I'd always been a music person, right? Loved music, loved the art. I discovered that I began to embrace those parts now, or then rather, and it kind of felt fun. So I would make friends on the grounds of like my music knowledge. Like people would come in to get their clothes laundered. Like it was a private union, right? So those guys were big on music. It was like a music community. So you had some of like the 1/3, if not 2/3 of the guys who from like the OT community came out from that school, right? So it was an environment that had that pipeline. So I made friends just off knowing who Dunsi was or who maybe Santi was, and right. And then that direction just started giving me more ideas, right? Working there, seeing my friend we used to, when I was in JS2 or 3, I think 3, we were seatmates. So you know how schools used to be where you have two people who share a seat. So he was my seatmate. I remember him gaining admission in that school. I remember one day, some days I'll be coming in from home, going to work like 7, 8 a.m. and my friend will be going for morning lecture. So having to experience that large gulf of lived experiences, right? So seeing somebody who you guys were literally together coming to a private uni while you are there working just a random work, and of course it did a lot to my esteem, right? Of course it would. Seeing that your guys is going to school, you have to hide your face so they don't see you. You're not doing any bad work. You're actually doing legit work, but it still will make sense there. I remember leaving there, and I genuinely think something that gave me like something to hope on, or something like a breath of fresh air, was modeling, right? So for whatever reason, I got into modeling, and it just felt, and I put my heart into it, right? My love for fashion, modeling, I kind of embraced both, and I was just out there doing stuff, working, going for shows, going for castings, putting myself out there, as they would say. Although, funny enough, I didn't make money from modeling all the time that I did it, but it gave me a reason to keep on doing stuff, right? And so I would go into modeling and keep on doing stuff, pushing myself, meeting people, but just making sure that I wasn't that same guy who left secondary school not knowing what he was going to be or become, right? I remember pushing those paths, and then it started looking up. I remember the first day I made 20k for my first gig, and it felt like I made like 1 million. I remember I was like, Mom, baby, 20k. Was like, what? And of course, 20k then was, I mean, it wasn't so short of a bad amount, right? It was such a huge deal. Oh, you made money from this, and from there things started looking up, right? From modeling, I kind of pivoted into fashion styling, right? And that was like another phase in my life where putting out work. I remember styling like the first people I would style, like 17 cast for a music video shoot. I was not paid, right? I remember going from Ogun State to Lagos to shoot that. I still have a scar on my left hand because of how heavy the bag I carried was. And of course, it didn't pay me, so there was no way I was going to do Uber or anything. The Uber couldn't even come to that part of Ogun State because the road was bad. So there's no way that would have happened, right? But I remember making that happen, and from there, it was just like that opened like a window, and I just started studying like the whole A-list guys, like
think of anybody or almost anybody. I was there, right? Putting in work, styling, creating stuff for them, and just making a name for myself, right? And then I remember one funny moment where my friend who was in the private uni at that time, although we had exchanged communications once in a while, I remember one time he just comes to my WhatsApp, a picture. I open it, and it's a still from a music video that I was in. It's like, bro, I think it was for Burna Boy, yeah. It's like, bro, I saw you in this video, man. Bro, you are going places, you are doing this. For him, it was just, I saw my guy is in, but he didn't know how that made me emotional, right? Knowing that this is the guy you used to hide from, who was going for morning lectures. It's coming to your DM. And a lot of things changed. Like I saw, of course, I'm not trying to be like all these artists who say, when I don't get money, she leave me. As I get money, she come. I'm not trying to be those tropes, but these are actually realities, right? But it's just on me not to form that as part of my like, no, that's not necessary. But I had people who really didn't care about me. They see me on TV or they see me with their celebrity and like, yo, how did you do this? I'm like, bro, I just kept on working, in all honesty, right? I kept on working. And then, but before styling, there was also a culture journalist aspect in my life. So I discovered one day, COVID was there, nobody was going out, we were not doing anything, right? And I'm just like, I was listening to an album, I was like, what if I actually just write about what I feel about this album? Really, that was really what I thought, and that was the genesis of me going into culture journalism. So for like 2 years straight on, I was just out there working, writing, going for events, covering events, speaking to creatives, speaking to the likes of people like Fireboy, Nisi Ogulu, Darren Leach, interviewing people, being immersed in this culture space and how they're navigated, right? But of course, because of the nature of our environment, some of these things don't cater to your bills, right? So you're doing things for the passion, but like you're broke. So it was looking at myself as being broke whilst doing what makes me happy. That's when fashion styling came out and brought me from there, right? But of course, I was still doing that. And owning an agency, I could see why this experience was so needed and important, because now that I have an editorial team where I'm chief editor, where people have to write reviews or write think pieces, and I have to make edits. Now I remember my years post-COVID, knowing that I actually did all of these things, and this is super important. This helped me, right? So that part was there, right? But when I look at my life, and of course, this did not come with. Of course, when I look at my story, I think something that kept on pushing is knowing that I didn't have a chance. Like I told myself, you don't really have a chance. Like, you don't have good grades. Your dad is not Mike Adenuga. So you have to go to make things. You are the only son. You are going to have to make things work. And you are going to spaces where nobody has thought of that. Like, I was the first to venture. I remember when, still in my youthful exuberance stage, I remember modeling. And I was going to church that day. And I was really trying to look fly. As a model, that's what you're taught. To stand out everywhere you go, right? So I remember that day, I go to church. I'm all dressed up. But I wear my left leg there's a white socks, my right leg there's a black socks, right? It was just me trying to be cool, in all honesty, right? And so I go to church to school. I come home and I make the mistake of taking my shoes off in the sitting room. My dad was just randomly lounging on the chair, and then he sees my legs and he's mad. He's like, "Are you mad? Are you? What is this? Like, what are you trying to do? What is this? The fashion that people say, you know, like our regular traditional fathers? Like, is this the fashion that they say we're doing?" Like, my mom had traveled to the east for a burial stuff, and then he calls her. He's like, "You are the one that's encouraging this boy to do this thing. I've told you they're supposed to stop this thing. Like, look at what you told." I was like, calm down, relax, just take care. She just spoke for me. Or the day where I went for a show somewhere, I think. Sule Axis. And I was supposed to come back to Ogun State because my parents were staying in Ogun State. And rain fell that day. My phone died. Nobody could access me. The people who I went to work with had communicated with my parents that he left here maybe by 7 p.m. what is. And by like 10, 11 I was not home. So you can imagine my parents losing their minds. My dad was like, God, and I told this boy not to do this fashion thing. I told him, you're the one that's encouraging this one. And you can imagine the back and forth they were going to be having. I mean, I was just there coming back like 12 a.m. ish, coming in, working like nothing happened. Because I was just confident that I went to work and things would be fine and whatnot. But it's just out of many experiences that happened in working in fashion or trying to find my way around this thing. And I remember the time we went for a casting. I think it was for Arise or Lagos Fashion Week. I can't remember which. And then I remember so you do this thing called you walk. They want to see what your catwalk skills are, aside passing like the height requirement and maybe facial structures that were needed. So yeah, I'm here working. Like I remember being in this white tee, skinny. I'm never going to be in that skinny phase anymore. Skinny jeans phase. There was this thing that's called Chelsea boots then. And then I remember walking towards four of the judges who were like in the table. And I remember that the person I was walking towards was lying, like her face was on the table, right? So I know you're not looking at me. And then I'm walking, and you raise your head up and tell me, "Thank you for coming." What did you see? Like you didn't look up, you didn't see me walk. Obviously, you were worn out, yeah. I remember taking that walk of shame. So when you walk there, you have to turn around and then walk back, and then everybody's in the room while you're doing your casting. It's not like it's only you and the judges. So everybody sees you when you're going. They sees you when they say thank you for coming, and they see you when you're going back and going home. So many knows on all of these things that were experienced, right? But those like I said, knowing that I did not stand a chance was what made me find a way. Like I know we hear a lot of inspirational talks and keep at it, Nike, and just keep on doing it. But really, if you have not lived it, you're not going to understand how important these things are. Like I live that. I know what it means to not people not really care about you. Who are you? But then when people can now brag about you that, oh my guy, that's my guy. Like I knew him, like we went to school together. But in school you were not you were not cool with me, right? But like they said, like that's really what it is to just keep on pushing, right? And I remember doing all this stuff, walking runways, working shows, working with major brands, right? Doing major campaigns, and seeing that although I'm not there where I want to be, I'm grateful that the life of persistence actually kind of pays. And that's really my story. I went to Bowen for my first TEDx, right? I spoke at the TEDx event, and it was so surreal because, like, I know one of my friends who are done with uni, who are maybe even master degrees older and whatnot, and seeing, like, speaking to students, speaking to undergrads, as somebody who has never been to uni before, is a madness, right? And that's really the story of my life, right? So I look at it and I say, it was so emotional for me because I'm like, by every standard of like measurement of education, there's no reason why I should be here speaking to undergrads like 300, 400. But it's just really what life is, and what knowing that you don't have knowing that you have been dealt like major blows can give you an upper hand. Just that realization. So that's been it for me, leading my creative arm, leading like 8 people, doing campaigns for people, producing major events, and just seeing that life can really happen when people just are willing to stay on this thing that they believe is going to work, even when it doesn't seem realizable, right? And I mean, I know I have a lot of stories, but that is a major defining story in my life. I'm pretty still young, of course, so I know I still have a lot of story to learn and glean from. But really, I'll say that's really been my story, and just the story of a man knowing life has dealt him major blows, but he kind of converted that and had the upper hand at the end. And I'm still fighting. I'm not dead yet, so I'm still fighting. Thank you guys for listening to my story.
We hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of What Is Your Story by Noisy Podcast. If you would like to be a guest on this show, click on the link in the description box below. Don't forget to share, leave a comment, and like this episode. Also follow us on social media at Noisy Streets. Okay, see you same time next week. Bye.